This period in our recent history was juxtaposing of our world and how firstly, the way it progressively induced and insinuated self-awareness came to emphasize the subject of reality and that which comes to question with it. Perhaps more uniquely this time may have been predicated on that which takes at face value and raises the issue with that quality of misunderstanding in our contrasts. More strangely this time could have been predicated on a silently subjective, even for its time, underpinning premise of things short-sighted about natures and the size and scope of the things we assume are always defined as per our projections. What was projective and why being a more implicating issue with the cognizance our culture would come to grapple with, that element bearing the more ambient and expressive quality that this time would perhaps measure its characteristic of describing its thoughts with. Considering the way media and cognizance would come to move and engage. Perhaps contradictingly at first, the relationship with our media apparatuses traditionally are somewhat the expression of wills in that they are only incrementally describing of our reality. The aspect of framing or describing ourselves and what we are being a first world paradox. So at this time our addressing of what reality perhaps already possessed in an intuitive sense an understanding of what does not encompass or merely describe with media means in the Western world, had a validation. The mundane was the mundane. We existed in the midst of life all the same. The socio-economically subjective. An ideology, despite its presence, didn't always speak to foresight. What was respectable in a world that was asking about it, didn't reflect what was always in touch with it. But this was 2015 to 2018, this wasn't even how that was understood so widely yet. Seeing as this is an introduction, I'll reserve the socio-political and economic commentary around this for later. Humanisms were more actively reached out with. The world had more to say to them, as it was there more often. This was also notably a time when earthlinesses in magnitude were adjacent to what was in the process of emerging to define its circumstance as it's misunderstood. The sciences in size and scope of complexity if not the overall appreciation of that which is around us was also notably of concern. But this wasn't the way this started and it wasn't what was totally respected by many means. At ground level, 2015 was an emergently strange time, hyperactive, and an anomaly that seemed to imply an otherly and unlikely psychological and causal quality felt as though out of the ordinary yet insinuating, put intuitively, suspicion could be in the air. The angst and activisms of the time were noticeably in excitement, and almost overnight all of the convergence of anxieties and expulsions found their schools of thought at forefront and under question. Nuance was the adult in the room. But this was a ricocheting and recoiling time as well. And what one may have pointed out was how nuance was otherwise dead. So the way thought itself was at first vehemently and then comprehensively observed and came to accentuate itself in the interhuman nuances of thought and spectrum sort of enabled an exposure of their quality. The internet was obviously host to our discourses, but public life and interaction also came to want to address for some sort of acknowledging's sake. This was a culture needing to understand its thoughts. And it was also, as you may know, very conjuring. Perhaps this generational threshold was ripe, but make no mistake, if this one was only ever the expression of its origin to only be so able-minded about its knowledge and conceptual capacities, it was diverse still, it was still a freak circumstance that triggered it. So freak, it actually cannot ever happen again. The event that triggered it was a mental breakdown. Mine.